following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Big Yac. It is I, Nico Salambenny, and today I am joined with special guest Glenn Goodberry. Welcome back to the show. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back.
Right.
Obviously, as you've been here last, a lot of things have changed.
Oh yeah.
New address.
Mm-hmm.
You were in the bunker at the first studio, but now you're in the reimagined bunker at the new studio.
Right.
What's your first thoughts? How's it looking and feeling?
I walked in and it looks fantastic. I mean, it's got, some artistic vibes out there, some vintage vibes, and, a lot bigger in here and kind of cool. I don't know. I'm super happy for you guys. It's pretty nice.
Appreciate it. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and this day of the week, specifically Wednesdays, are so much fun because there's 3 different shows that are, on the way in, on the way out.
Yeah.
There's another one recording live as we speak, and so the space has been able to kind of provide like a haven for multiple creators to produce at once. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
And yeah, let's just jump right into it.
Sure.
So welcome back in.
Thank you.
What has changed in the last few months since you've been on your side of things?
Not too much. Just kind of, off-season stuff, putzing through. And last time I was here was during the season last year, and football-wise, didn't really end up how we wanted it to for the Bills, and they were pretty hot the last time we were together talking about it and looking forward to a playoff run. And then that was derailed, and then we hit the off season, and just kind of just enjoying the weather, summer break for the kids, and here we are in mid-July and a week away from training camp already.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
Time flies just like that. Actually, since the last time you've been on, I believe this was before you and Joe had that awesome segment.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So my brother, obviously, he's a Bengals fan. Bengals on the Brain. He runs on Twitter. Joe Goodberry. He's got a partnership and a sponsorship with a company called First Star. They brought me out. I'm the token brother, which I'm grateful to be with Joe. Joe works really hard, and I get to tag along sometimes and do some fun stuff. We went to Florida for the Jags-Bengals game, the first game without Joe Burrow for them. They gave us some on-field passes and put us up in their beach house in Florida, and
awesome.
had a full NFL weekend, did some shows out there, some live streaming. One was an Alabama game, and then we live streamed 49ers game the following night. It was pretty fun. It was a good time. We did a lot of content creation and opportunity to see Florida in December, and it was pretty fun.
That's awesome. There was that one segment. I think it was for the Bills and Bengals game.
Yeah.
Was that aired nationally? That segment between you guys, like it was like the brotherly rival. It was like brother rivalry or something like that.
So the Bengals do a weekly show for their website, and they invited. So when the Bills played the Bengals last year, I believe it was November 9th, or somewhere within there. Is that first week in November? They asked if my brother and I wanted to come down. They could do a brotherly rivalry thing. They wanted me in my Bills gear. They wanted my brother in his Bengals gear. And they recorded us there in the stadium. They had their media team, who were pretty great. They did a great job, highlighting my brother and I, growing up with football together, because ultimately that's what it is. Something that brought us together was football, even though we were fans of 2 different teams. And my brother's dynamic of being in Buffalo and growing up a Bengals fan, and that was pretty fun. So they aired that as part of their weekly show. It was a segment within that, and it was a pretty fun experience and once in a lifetime type thing.
That's awesome. Let's talk about the brand, Buffalo on the Brain.
Yeah.
How's that been going so far?
It's going. It's a labor of love. It's something that's super rewarding when I see, the logo out there on somebody's car, or somebody wearing a hat, or, asking me about it. A lot like you, I get to talk about some things. I do lots of giveaways with it. raise money for charities at times with it, and something that people can sort of recognize me and the fandom by. Buffalo on the brain isn't necessarily just a Goodberry thing. It's if you have it, do you have Buffalo on the brain? It's a fan thing for me, and it's something, that sort of I can share with the community and the fandom, and, kind of bring people together with it.
That's awesome. Now, I do have to talk a little bit about a segment here. Obviously, the way that things played out was not the best in the Bills fans' favor. The Chiefs now winning their third of their last 5 Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. I bring that up because you have an ad that you're moving away from, so it's a good time to kind of talk about it and announce it now. But why don't you go ahead and explain why you're moving away from the Spotify?
So Chiefs fans have been teasing my brother and I for a couple of years now, ever since the first Bengals-Bills playoff game where Cincinnati came here and kind of beat the snot out of Buffalo. Chiefs fans were making fun of us because, we had joked that one of our teams were winning the Super Bowl this year. We were just sort of being, brash, bold, and also kind of hyperbolic about it. So it's been a sort of a thing with Chiefs fans, a little bit on the side here and there. And then I started, making merchandise and stickers that included QR codes for the Bill Shout song. It's sort of interactive fun, wear or accessories and apparel. And then one day I go to scan the QR code on a new item that comes in. For people wondering, I'll just hold up one of these little stickers
awesome
stickers. Of the QR code. Thanks. A little holographic, got the 90s vibe to them.
So much fun.
So I go to scan it just to make sure it works, and the playlist I use had all 32 teams sort of chant or song on there, and I was using specifically the Bill Shout song. I go on, and the Chiefs chant starts playing. And I'm like, this can't be possible. So I'm scanning other items that I have used and made in the past with that same Spotify code. Chiefs chant's playing. So I do a little bit of digging. The other 31 teams have been deleted from this playlist, and the only single team left in this playlist on Spotify was the Chiefs.
Jeez.
So I got emails going to Spotify. I'm trying to figure out what I can do to correct this because I've got koozies out there. There's hundreds of pieces of merchandise out there with a Spotify QR code on it that's supposed to play the Bill Shout song, including a wedding that I was a part of dear friends. They wanted 300 koozies that they could give away at their wedding, and all of that has now the Chiefs chant if they scan it. So I'm moving away from the QR code because there's not much I can do right now for it. Hopefully in the future I can find a replacement, but they got me good.
Being said, if you if you see it, just don't scan the Spotify code. Pretend it doesn't exist because the branding and the logo is awesome. Just ignore the Spotify code on the bottom.
Ignore the Spotify code.
Don't play it. Don't promote it any more than it should be. So, all that being said, this week, not much has happened just yet in football terms. A lot of teams are starting to report, or at least a lot of rookies. I know, for example, like the Bills rookies just started reporting to say John Fisher yesterday. But the biggest news to come out of the game of football this week, of course, was the release of NCAA 25. We were just talking together pre-show. I don't have it just yet. I'm going to buy it this weekend. There was the pre-order thing that came out, I think, Monday night, and so I've already seen people playing it. My entire Twitter feed or X feed, whatever you want to call it, is just all NCAA 25 memes and
I saw a photo. There was something, almost 700,000 people were playing it live.
Unreal.
I don't know if that was last night, but it's incredible. The NCAA, I guess you finally get a game after, 11 years or something like that?
Exactly. It's been so long. I see what's pretty cool is, like, seeing some of these, some of the players that are in the game. They're like, I grew up playing NCAA, and now I'm in the game, and that's got to be a surreal feeling. I mean, it's the same thing with a lot of Madden kids, but for this, like, there are so many more D1 college football players than there are NFL players, and so for them to also get their chance, I mean, there's things like Morehead State or like small schools. I'm thinking like, I don't know, like Georgia Southern or like schools that don't usually get put in the limelight are all in this game. I know like my Syracuse Orange is in the game, and so all these guys that grew up playing these games, they actually have something to look forward to and seeing themselves in a video game. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll have to give everyone my official review when I buy and download the game. Maybe next episode I'll be talking about it more if it's still relevant to talk about. But that being said, I also kind of want to segue that into the Big Yac Podcast moving forward. I want to start diving more into college football. I want to talk a little bit more weekday, and then all that being said, obviously during the off season, I've really only been recording every 3 to 4 weeks. That's by design. That gives me a creative mental break. Got a lot of things in my personal life, a lot of change going on right now, so I had to kind of step away for a few weeks and take care of that. But as we get closer and closer to the season, I do plan on recording weekly again, especially as we get into week 1, college football, things like that. More content coming back, all of that of the sorts. So that's the plan moving forward. The NCAA was a great segue to kind of talk about that. But now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes of it.
Sure.
Glenn, you being a Bills guy, I mean, me being a Bills guy,
yeah,
it's pretty natural to talk about the Bills or I guess what the Bills did do this offseason or what they didn't do this offseason.
Sure.
So just giving a real quick rundown of some important dates moving on for the Bills. So as I already said, the rookies reported yesterday.
That's right.
The veterans will be reporting, I believe, next Monday, July 23rd. Some notable roster changes, of course, was the draft. Some of the headlining names, Keon Coleman, Cole Bishop, safety out of Utah, Dwayne Carter, third-round pick out of Duke, defensive tackle. Ray Davis was a running back pick that was kind of highly touted to be like the Thunder to James Cook's Lightning. And then, of course, Cedric Van Pran Granger. I think he's just going by Cedric Van Pran. I don't know, but kind of the center of the future for the Bills. In terms of free agency signings, we grabbed Curtis Samuel, MVS, Mac Hollins for the wide receiver room. La'el Collins was signed. It was kind of like one of those under the radar signings that just happened. Like, now La'el Collins is a Buffalo Bill.
Yeah.
Deion Jones was another like low key. I remember him, former first round pick, being kind of like a big deal at the time, but he under the radar was signed. So, nothing that really screams like game changing moves, but kind of just replacing some pieces that were lost. That's not even talking about some of the players that we lost. The big headline one obviously being Stephon Diggs, losing Gabe Davis to free agency, Mitch Morse being released, and then Leonard Floyd being lost in free agency, and then of course the release of Tre'Davious White and Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde's still up in the air. We haven't heard anything just yet, so as of right now, he's a key departure. So looking at this, kind of looking back in review, before we get into training camp, what do you think the state of the Bills is right now?
It's almost a fresh start. You look at the window that shut when they lost to the Chiefs. You're losing a lot of veterans. You're losing a lot of receptions with Stephon Diggs. You have almost a new look Bills, and you're looking for young leadership to step up. And where's that offensive distribution going to come from? Where's the defensive leadership going to come from? Hyde and Poyer back there were, the rock of the defense. Hopefully Milano can come back fully healthy. He had a pretty serious injury last year. Obviously, the Bills were strapped for cash. They went pretty much all in the last couple of seasons thinking they could do it, and they could have. But there's just a new leaf sort of this year. There's that Stephon Diggs move is huge, obviously, but I think on a positive note from it, it gives opportunity. If you look at the Bills ending the season last year, they ended on a long streak, a very positive streak other than losing to the Chiefs in the playoff game. And a lot of that happened with Diggs, more of a decoy, but we all know about that big drop against the Chiefs. The new look sort of offense, and I think this year it's Josh Allen's offense. It's Josh Allen's team. There's no question, because you're not necessarily, not that Diggs, but we knew what he carried. We knew he had a little bit, not the baggage, but his presence was heavy, for lack of a better term, I guess. But yeah, the smaller moves that they made, bolster up that offensive line a little bit. Maybe Collins can, help out a little bit. Losing Morse is huge. But a lot of those guys have been very interchangeable. The Bills have been able to build their offensive line to be interchangeable. The same thing they sort of do on the defensive line also. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm optimistic, but obviously that's the big conversation is what are they going to do with what they have?
I think it's going to be really telling going into training camp and then, of course, getting some live action practice. The Bills having a joint practice with the Steelers ahead of their preseason game. And then, of course, all their preseason games. This is going to be a huge time for this. I'm looking specifically at the wide receiver room right now.
Yeah.
It's unproven. Unproven is the first word that comes to mind. I mean, your starting wide receivers are Curtis Samuel and rookie Keon Coleman. You have Khalil Shakir in the slot. And looking at that, I mean, that's only one player from last year in that wide receiver room that played, actual meaningful snaps.
Yeah.
You have guys like Andy Isabella, who's been there. Justin Shorter was on IR all of last year, so they kind of know the system. But really, I mean, you're talking about, like you said, a fresh look offense for Josh Allen and this Bills team. So I'm really interested to see Keon Coleman specifically and where they kind of put him in terms of is he going to fully replace that Stephon Diggs role, or are they going to kind of move from that single alpha wide receiver altogether? I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, okay, if he can give the Bills 50 catches, 600 yards, and 5 touchdowns, that's a successful rookie year.
Sure.
I don't necessarily think I'm expecting 1,000 yards out the gate. It would be great, but I would count success as 50, 605. I don't know where you're standing at with that, but
I'm standing at, I think the only 1,000-yard receiver this year is going to be Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah,
and I think
that's a good point.
The Bills have been trying to build a 2 very good tight end, 12 personnel offensive format for quite some time, and it's never really wrinkled out for them that way. So I think now they've got Kincaid, they've got Knox. They, need to put the ball somewhere, and I think they're going to focus a lot on the Kincaid sort of dynamic. He looked great last year. He's the record holder for rookie receivers for the Bills last year and for receptions. I don't think the wide receiver core is necessarily going to be as leaned on as much as they were in the past because you had Stephon Diggs, you had somebody that was getting 100 receptions a year. I don't think it's going to be the same. They're going to mix it up a lot more, a lot like they did towards the end of last year. Again, that you're going to give Joe Brady his opportunity to build his offense and install that offense, and now it's going to be his with the Bills. But I think you're going to get kind of what we saw, but with a lot more wrinkles, a lot of Joe Brady wrinkles this year. But I don't know. For me, if you want to talk specifically, what do I think Coleman's going to have? I think, 40 to 50 receptions sounds about right. And then, 500-600 yards. We want him to do great. He's such a darling right now. Obviously, Western New York wants him to succeed. Hopefully
there's already murals of him.
I know.
There's already murals of him in Buffalo.
And they put it over top of Stephon Diggs.
Yep.
So
I know this winter all the Macy's coats are going to be sold out.
The blue and red ones will be all, puff jackets and filling up. I call it the Ralph, but Highmark Stadium.
Whatever name you want to call it. The Ralph, the Highmark.
the Mark.
The Blue Cross.
Yeah.
The Pit. You can get the Pit.
Oh, the Pit. The Pit looks good. I saw some photos. They're really looking like a stadium.
But you did bring up a good point. I mean, we're talking about nearly 200 vacated targets.
Mm-hmm.
Not even targets. I should say receptions. 200 vacated receptions we're talking about here. Probably closer to 300 vacated targets that have to go somewhere. Whether it be a more run-heavy focused offense. Joe Brady has kind of toyed with that in the past, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. All I know is for fantasy purposes, draft Dalton Kincaid. Hands down, draft Dalton Kincaid.
Exactly.
Dalton Kincaid should be the only receiver that you're drafting early for the Bills. So with the Bills coming in and making these moves that kind of, like we said, they're not huge needle movers. The Jets and the Dolphins are still lurking. The Patriots, they're in kind of rebuild mode, so I'm not going to talk about them in today's show. I really want to hone in on the Jets and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Taking a look at what they did, and is that enough for them to kind of make a bid at the AFC East? Or did the Bills not do enough to hold their bid for the AFC East? Now, looking back at last year, Miami held a division for a while, almost 2 months.
Yeah.
It was about 8 weeks of game time. Can they turn the needle? Can they move the needle this year? I mean, let's taking a look at their draft class. They really spent a lot of draft capital on both their lines, drafting Chop Robinson in the first round, Patrick Paul, offensive tackle out of Houston, in the second round, and then also spending a fifth rounder on another edge rusher, Muhammad Kamara, which might be the brother of. I think I actually did see that's the brother of Alvin Kamara.
Okay.
They added Odell Beckham. They added Jonnu Smith. They added Shaq Barrett. It's a pretty good signing for them. Calais Campbell, Jordan Brooks, Anthony Walker. So they really kind of bolstered up their back seven on the defensive side. And that is after losing, of course, Christian Wilkins, Emmanuel Agba, Andrew Van Ginkel. So taking a look at the Dolphins first, I mean, do you think that they did enough to kind of challenge the Bills for the AFC East here?
Yeah. I think there's a few things that, I mean, the Bills went a step or two backwards a little bit. So maybe it is an opportunity for Miami to finally finish it. That's their big issue is last year they couldn't finish it. And they need to. If they want to win a playoff game, they got to have teams come to Miami. We saw it looked difficult for them to play in that cold weather at Kansas City. It's tough for them to come play in the cold in Buffalo. You see those numbers that, Tua's record in the cold weather. And also, the Bills have won 4 straight AFC East titles. It's tough to do that. It's tough to win one for 4 in a row. The odds start stacking against you when you're looking at trying to win a 5th AFC East in a row, unless you're the New England Patriots or the Kansas City Chiefs. You're those sort of outliers. Maybe the Bills can do it. But if there is a year that I think Buffalo doesn't win the AFC East, it definitely would not shock me. I won't predict them, honestly, to even win the AFC East this year. I think it will be between the Dolphins or the Jets. Jets kind of want to look strong on paper. They have a very tight window. Obviously, they knew that signing Aaron Rodgers with his age, and they already lost a year. So maybe they got this year to make one last push, and we'll see how the Devontae Adams stuff kind of pans out because you're hearing those types of rumblings. They have a great defense. That defense gives Josh Allen headaches. They're way harder to play than the Dolphins are.
Definitely.
They make my hands sweat way more than Miami does.
Yeah.
So, you got kind of 2 different elements last year with these teams. Jets, good defense. Miami, good offense. So it wouldn't shock me. I would still favor Miami over New York. But it wouldn't shock me if one of those 2 teams did win the AFC East, and I totally can still see Buffalo winning it, and Buffalo's gonna get a wild card at worst.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a 3-dog race in the AFC East. I kind of want to segue that over into the AFC as a whole. We were just talking about this pre-show, like even just looking at like the AFC North, for example, all 4 teams with winning records. There are a lot of players to talk about, a lot of contenders in the AFC this year. I mean, we're looking at just going down the line. I mean, the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Texans, the Browns, the Dolphins, the Steelers even, the Bengals, the Jags, the Jets, and I mean, I guess we could even talk about the Chargers on a fringe, and then for that matter, the Colts too. I mean, those are all teams that are fighting for playoff spots this year, and there's only 7 spots, and I just listed off 12 teams.
Sure. It's almost like the NFC is not even trying.
No.
Like the AFC, of course, the Bills finally get a quarterback where they can make some noise and maybe win a Super Bowl with, and then you got Pat Mahomes, and then you got the rest of the AFC East.
You got Joe Burrow, and you got C.J. Stroud's rookie year.
Exactly. That's sort of bolstered up. You sort of fall back on the most important important position on the field is the quarterback. And, you see all these rankings of the quarterbacks, and especially in the offseason, you want to debate, what is Josh Allen? Is he 2? Is he 3? Is he 5?
He's the easy target to talk about.
He is an easy target to talk about.
Every offseason.
Bottom line, though, in the entire NFL, he's the top 3. He's a top 3, and those 3 are probably all in the AFC right now. So you want to hope to fall back on that. Things are going to pan out differently for all these teams, and also including Buffalo. The injury bug, the situation bug, luck, which has something to do with it, which way the ball bounces. There's a lot, obviously, of preparation that goes into these seasons, and there's injuries in training camp, knock on wood, that can derail hopes and dreams. And hopefully it's not the Bills, and coming from a couple of Bills fans, hopefully it's not, right? Yeah. So it's going to be an exciting season, and it could be nail-biting.
Yeah.
How it goes. But the AFC looks crazy. It has the last 3-4 years.
It's been a dogfight every single week. I mean, I don't, before this season, it's been hard to kind of like look and be like, oh my goodness, like, are the Bills are they going to even make the playoffs this year? There was a point in time last season where there was a chance that they missed the playoffs entirely. I mean, it came down to having to watch things to happen at one point in time.
Exactly.
Which us as Bills fans, we know all too well.
Yep.
It was so weird, kind of for the first time in 6-7 years, having to even think like that.
Mm-hmm.
Looking ahead at their schedule, I mean, they start off hot right off the gate. I mean, they open up with Arizona, so that should be a very winnable game. But I mean, you step right into a very important AFC game. Honestly, just given how the AFC is, every conference game is going to be so important.
Yeah.
So right off the get-go, I mean, you're talking, they have their, I guess, I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, their layup game against the Cardinals, but then they jump right into Dolphins, Jaguars, Ravens, Texans, Jets, and then they get the Titans and Seahawks, which Seahawks are also a team not to scoff at, but that initial stretch there of Dolphins, Jaguars, Ravens, Texans, Jets.
Week 1 in the NFL is always weird.
Yep. And that's the thing, too.
Week 1 can be a fallacy. Week 1 can give false hope. Teams come out jazzed up. Things, you got plans, and they just don't work that first week. You're trying to figure things out still. So that Arizona game being a kind of a gimme is, it sounds cliche, but it's not. You gotta be prepared for it.
That's a great point.
And the way the Bills play certain teams, or are certain teams playing up because they're playing the Bills.
The Bills are one of those teams now.
Yeah, you can get fired up to play those types of teams. So you have to be on your game. You got the talent. You also have to be able to execute. And the Bills are definitely going to have to do it this year. The Bills have a hard schedule, at least how it looks now.
Looking at it from week 1 to week 2 even, I mean, they're on a short week going into they have their 1 o'clock game on the season opener. But then they go to Miami on a short week, Thursday Night Football, right back into it.
Yeah.
They get that mini bye early, too, going into week 3. They have that mini bye where they play on Thursday. They don't play again until the following Monday. So you're already losing that. And then you go on to another short week against the Ravens.
That early game play in Miami at a night game is an awesome benefit to the Bills, too, by the way.
You get to avoid the heat, which, again, I think that was the only reason why they lost that game.
Yeah, they were, both teams were so worn out. It was just an odd game.
So looking at it, that is a good point, too, where this is probably the best opportunity to beat Miami, just not at the greatest time.
Sure.
And then, rounding it out from Baltimore to Houston. I mean, that stretch, I'm
tough.
looking at that stretch. For the first 5 weeks, if they go 2-3, is that to be expected?
Sure. And it doesn't – it's interesting because they start sort of that way sometimes. And then these last 3 years, they'll go on these like 5, 6, 7 game win streaks, which again is like against the odds. But
they'll beat the brakes off of a team that was supposed to play them close and then lose a gimme game.
Yeah. Which we can look at so many games last year. The Denver Bronco game and the Jaguar game in London, and those types of games that were like, what are you doing?
What the hell, man?
Yeah.
And then I'm looking ahead to the second stretch of tough games. They have the Chiefs, and they have a bye, but then they go right back and play the 49ers, the Rams, and the Lions.
Yeah.
So those 3 NFC games not as important in terms of standing, but that's late season. So every game is going to be important. I mean, we're going into December football, and they're facing these NFC teams that are all, again, playoff teams.
Right.
So looking at the season as a whole, I wouldn't be surprised to have a 9-8 season or a 10-7 season at the floor. Could they have a 13-4 season? Sure.
Right.
Is it going to happen? I don't think it's the likeliest. I think they'll settle right at that 10-7 or maybe 11-6 mark.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but
no, that's
where
100% where I'm at. Anywhere between 10, 11 wins is where I think they'll end up.
I guess my other fear is that even enough in this AFC?
Right.
For a playoff? So is 10-7 going to be enough? The Steelers just snuck in last year on a 10-7.
It may
record.
not be enough, but you got to hope the AFC teams are beating the snot out of each other. The AFC North, you can't let 3 teams, make the playoffs, and you got to figure that out. And hopefully they can beat each other up enough, and it's going to be tough. Again, the Bills have 3 teams in their division that are very capable, and and between Houston and Indy and Jacksonville, there's 3 more, and it's difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one this season. Before we go, let me ask you this: where do you rank? Let's just take the AFC teams really quick, and just gut reaction. Give me your winners, starting with the AFC North.
I think it's going to be the Bengals that come out of the AFC North.
Over top the Ravens?
Yeah, I think they'll come out over the Ravens.
I have the Ravens winning right now, but honestly, it's going to be a close one between those 2 teams for me.
Right.
Going into the AFC West, easy.
Yeah.
Chiefs. Nothing can contest them right now.
We need somebody to put a little bit of pain on Kansas City.
Something.
And
put up a fight in the AFC West.
Yeah, exactly.
AFC South, I like the Colts. I don't think the Colts are going to win it all. I think it's still the Jags division. It's the Jags division to lose. I want to root for the Colts, but I think the Jags are going to take this one.
Sure, and I think Trevor Lawrence and the Jags need to take this one. I think they need to do it, so I think they will.
Lastly, AFC East.
Yeah. My gut's telling me Buffalo. I'm trying to take my fan hat off.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be shocked if Miami did win the division finally. And
I agree with that too. I think it's going to be between Miami or Buffalo. The Jets, I hate to say it because it sounds like there's no facts to back it up, but it just always feels like towards the end of the season something happens where they kind of fall apart. I don't know if that comes down to coaching. I don't know if that comes down to just organizational structure or what.
Sure.
There's just always a way the Jets kind of crumble.
Mm-hmm.
And until that kind of mentality, that philosophy changes, you can't convince me otherwise. Dolphins got really close last season. They got very close. I mean, it came down to legitimately the last game of the season. So I think the Dolphins have enough. But did the Dolphins do enough to stop? I mean, their moves weren't lights out, big game-changing moves themselves. Similar to the Bills, I mean, they filled the holes and they took care of positions that they needed. Again, not too flashy. I mean, they signed 8 players for their back 7 on defense. I mean, they're hitting the holes that they need to, but none of them really kind of stand out.
They were just a game away from winning it last year.
Yeah.
And they kind of blew it there in that last game. So can they avoid that? That's the thing. It's almost a mental hurdle for them, in my opinion. But
definitely. So that is all I have for you guys today on another off-season edition of the Big Yac Podcast. Glenn, I want to thank you for coming on and joining us back. We were just talking. We'll have to have you back on again. We'll have to do some sort of some brotherly love segment or something like that.
Yeah, maybe I can get Joe on with me. We can.
Yeah. But yeah, shout out everything you need to. Take this time, plug your brand, and
check me out at buffaloandthebrain.com. You can check out all the apparel and stuff, and then my social medias. My Twitter at Glenn _Goodberry, Goodberry variant. a little bit of play on the whole MCU
Yep.
variant stuff
Love it.
because I'm the Bills fan brother of my brother. And, Buffalo on the Brain on Instagram. Check us out. Give us a follow if you like. And, yeah.
Awesome. Glenn, thank you once again for coming on, taking the time out of your day to come join me. Thank you, Emerge. Thank you, BICBP Radio Network. Thank you, Rich Moranto. He's out busy recording another podcast right now as we speak. So thank you for keeping the lights on and giving me a spot to do my thing. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, be good. We'll see you next time.